quick start. Oh, yeah. All right.
I tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Graphic or whatever.
Okay, so I want to make good on the promise. I said that I would teach you a new way of brainstorming for this. You gotta know. But before I do the new way, I got a question for Ms. Salmon. Okay, so let's say that you started the brainstorming on what I gave you last night. What I told you to have today, print it. Okay, so how would you do that? How would you go about starting that brainstorming? For the essay question that you printed out last night, how would you go about? What would you do? How would you start that process? Huh?
You mean what's step one?
Yeah, we know what step one is.
Yes,
But I'm talking about step two now. We're talking about brainstorming. How would you? Wait a minute, son. How would you start the brainstorming? Yes.
Understanding the topic.
Yes. Okay, I need everybody to remember this and don't ever forget this. The reason I say we got to do it a new way, the brainstorming a new way, is because before you can brainstorm, you're going to have to read the passage. You can't brainstorm something that you haven't read. Now, it's going to be really easy to brainstorm this question. Do you agree or disagree that teenagers should be monitored on the internet? Oh, you can brainstorm all day with that. That's something you know. But what about brainstorming the question for the sample essay about Jimmy Carter, what he wrote, the National Wildlife Refuge? How would you brainstorm that if you didn't read the passage? You have to read the passage before you brainstorm. It's impossible. There's no other way. So if you don't read the passage, you don't even get to step two. And if you can't get to step two, where are you going to go? There's nowhere else to go. That makes brainstorming very important in this process. You have to read. My objective with this lesson is to show you what you should be collecting during your brainstorming. Let us begin. Rhetorical strategies. Now, every author has a strategy, especially when they're trying to convince you of something. They have a strategy that they apply in order to get you to agree. So that makes a rhetorical strategy an essential part of, or identifying it, an essential part of your rhetorical essay. You have to identify that strategy. This is the definition I gave you yesterday for the rhetorical essay. So you have to write that down. But at the end of that definition, analyze the rhetorical strategy that the author uses to present text to an audience. You have to identify it. If you can't identify the strategy the author is using, you can't write the rhetorical essay. So let's talk about the strategy. Number one, and this is the first thing you need to know about the strategy. In an argumentative text, because that's what you're analyzing. You're analyzing someone's argument. In an argumentative text, an author uses two main elements to formulate their strategy. Two elements to a rhetorical strategy. You have to know both of them. The first element, the appeals. How the author presents the argument. And this is in general. This is in general, how the author presents the argument. The minor or the second element is the style or tools. This is how the author presents the information in the argument. Salma, you ain't gonna get this without writing it down. It's impossible. It just ain't gonna happen. I can tell you that now. Two elements to a rhetorical strategy. The appeals, how the author presents the argument, and the style or tools, how the author presents the information in the argument. Now I want to make this real world. I want to make this something that you understand. Everybody stop writing for a moment. Everybody stop writing for a moment. And you know you should be writing every word anyway. We already talked about that. Listen carefully to this real world example or explanation. We got, let's say, the green group and we have the red group. They are both going to present an argument. They're going to present something. We say they want to call it an argument. They're going to present something. Now, there's a general way they're going to do it. A few general ways that they can do it. They can use a video, some type of poster board, a PowerPoint presentation, a presentation, and that's pretty much where it's limited at. Let's just say it's limited to those four things. Green group is going to use a PowerPoint presentation. Red group decided on a poster board. That's how they're going to present it. But then we have those details about how they're going to present the information in it. Maybe red group is going to use blue text. The green group is going to use red text. Maybe they're both going to use phrases. But at the end, their presentations are going to look different because they are going to have different styles on how they presented the information in the presentation. We get that concept? This is the same thing with an author. They have different things they use to present the text. One may focus on diction. Another may focus on figurative language. Another may focus on tone or attitude, so forth and so on. But it's guaranteed that they're going to use ethos, pathos, or logos. Even if one doesn't use tone or one doesn't use figurative language, he's going to use ethos, pathos, or logos. It's the only way. That's what makes it in general. The styles are more specific. Do we get this? We get this? These two elements? Do we understand the difference between them? You understand the difference between them? In a rhetorical essay, you have to identify, you have to specify not only the in general way that the author presented the argument, but you also have to get the specifics on how he did it. Because those specifics are going to be different from author to author. We understand this? Okay. Excellent. Now, like I said before, this is the same thing you have to use when you read a passage, any passage. Because every author is different. You got to determine the appeal and you got to determine the style, because the questions you're going to have to answer after the passage are going to be based on that. So let's continue here.
Howdy, Ags. I'm Lindsay, and in this episode of Write Right, we will be learning about the art of persuasion. Ethos, pathos, and logos are common themes in introductory English classes. So I'll help clear some things up, do some explaining, and hopefully you'll be able to use these tools down the road. Let's get started. Ethos, pathos, and logos are three tools of rhetoric. For those of you unclear on the definition of rhetoric, it is the art of speaking and writing effectively. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle identified three tools that public speakers can use to persuade an audience. He called these the appeals of ethos, pathos, and logos because speakers use them to appeal to an audience and win agreement. So why should you care? Well, if you understand ethos, pathos, and logos, it can help you build a stronger argument. It will also make you more aware of how a speaker or writer is addressing you. Sometimes the appeals can be used to manipulate an audience, but if you are aware of them, you can keep your wits about you and evaluate the argument rationally and soundly. Let's take a look at each one. Ethos means character, and the ethical appeal asks the audience to believe because the speaker or writer is a person of good character. The speaker or writer says in effect, I am a good person. I have good character. I have goodwill toward you, and I have good common sense. So you should believe me. For example, who is Uncle Sam to be telling you to join the army? Well, he personifies the United States and he looks like he seriously needs your help. What about Apple's Mac First PC app? The Mac people are cool and laid back. You should go with the Mac because the Mac guy is smart, nice, and sensible. The nerdy PC guy is insecure, not to mention all the errors he makes. Why believe him when he praises PCs? Let's take a look at pathos. Pathos stimulates emotion in an audience. It appeals to the heart, not the head. Most of you have probably seen Sarah McLachlan's ASPCA commercials. These are perfect examples of pathos because they make the viewer want to cry, go out and rescue every animal, or both. The next image is from the Children's Hospital in Boston, asking you to like their Facebook page. One look and your heart wants you to find a computer ASAP, because if you don't, the image will stay in your mind until you do so. The last appeal is logos. While pathos appeals to the heart, logos appeals to the head. When used well, the logical appeal provides a well-supported argument. Sometimes, though, it just suggests logic. Like this milk ad suggests that drinking milk will give you superpowers because of the calcium. I mean, you aren't going to be able to fly through the sky after a tall glass of milk, but studies suggest that it will make you stronger. Actually, few ads rest on logical appeal alone, and most use all three. Like this one. Of course this would appeal to women because they want to feel beautiful. And who best to show it than a famous actress and gorgeous supermodel, Brooke Shields. It makes an argument by analogy. If Brooke has beautiful lashes using Latisse, others who use it will also have beautiful lashes. Also, medical lingo sounds very logical. Well, there you have it, an introduction to the ideas of ethos, pathos, and logos. I hope you learned a little about the art of persuasion. Don't forget, if you have any more rhetorical questions.
Okay. All right, so that makes about the third time we went over this. Hopefully the third time is just like stuck in your head now. This is the, we can't keep beating it until it's dead, okay? We got to try to give it some life. That means you got to learn it. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Like I told you in first quarter, it's something you got to know. It's something you got to know. It's something you got to know. So whenever you decide that, hey, this is something I got to know, and I'm going to know it, it'll be waiting for you. But it's something you got to know. Well, here we go. The main element, the general aspect of the strategy, of course, is appeals. How the author presents the argument. This is the general way. There are only three ways that an author can present an argument. There ain't 100,000. 3 ways. Now, we can break those 3 ways up into 5 things, and we can give each of those things a word, and we can make an acronym, and we'll call it PAYLEADS. Now, I didn't do that. Somebody else did that. But in the world of rhetorical essay writing, this is how they break down the 3 ways, or the 3 main appeals on how an author presents an argument, and they call it PAYLEADS. Pathos, ethos, logos, inductive, deductive, and syllogism. The last three fall under logos. Because logos is much more complicated than the first 2, pathos and ethos, so it needs a little more, and it is given a little more. Whenever you talk about convincing someone, for sure you're going to be using some kind of logic, some kind of reasoning. And this is where it becomes a little complicated. And that's why they gave it 3 whole words in the acronym here. Just make sure you get it. Inductive, deductive, and syllogism. And of course, some of that, inductive, deductive, we've already discussed. Implicit, explicit, those types of words you already know. This is PAYLEADS. Now, of course, I can't leave it there. I got to go into each one. I'm just saying that. It's not enough for me to just leave it at the acronym. I wish I could, but I can't. Pathos. for the fourth time. Appealing to emotions of the audience. And this is done by using stylistic elements such as word choice. In organization and in meaning. Whenever the author is specifically using words that have various meanings that they know the reader is going to be able to relate to, then they are specifically using that appeal called pathos. Ethos. And this is probably the easiest one to identify. It's all about straight facts. Straight up facts, statistical data, things that can't really be argued. We call that ethos. So when an author uses facts and statistics and scientific data and things like that, then to try to get you to agree with something, the appeal they are using is I think the first two are pretty easy. It's when we get down to the logos that things become kind of interesting. Now, logos is appeal to logic. You try to reason with the reader to get them to agree. To get them to connect your position with the evidence. Trying to get them to see how it connects. Trying to prove to them it connects. And so you reason with it. Try to use some logic behind it. Now, this is done, of course, in a few ways. It can be done inductively. We talked about this before. And it can be done inductively. And we talked about these two things before. When an author does this process, it's called syllogism. When we're talking about deductive reasoning, when an author uses deductive reasoning, it's called syllogism. So that's what syllogism means. It means a deductive scheme of a formal argument consisting of a major, minor, premise, and a conclusion. So when an author uses deductive reasoning to present an argument, he's doing syllogisms. He's using syllogism. And of course, all of that, inductive, deductive, and syllogism, falls under logos. So this is how they are connected to that. So up to this point right here, you shouldn't have a problem. Because this is stuff you already knew. Stuff you're supposed to already know. So no problems here. Yes? Hello?
What is the syllogism again?
That's when an author uses deductive reasoning. He uses a deductive reasoning.
So S and D are exactly the same thing.
Pretty much. Okay, so is that rocket science? Not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Okay. This is an excellent place for us to stop. Excellent place for us to pick up tomorrow. Look, if you haven't read the two things you printed out, read them. If you haven't printed out the two things you were supposed to read, print them out and read them. If you read it and you printed it out, then study the appeals. So we can get the appeals behind us. Because the difficult challenge comes when we talk about identifying style. So we need to leave it.
In Islamic school. We'll talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's rolling the hard way. We don't want to roll quite that hard. We want to get one of them little minibuses.
What's up?
Tell you what, fact, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Everybody's gone out of their mind.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome, Mr. Quick's class.
Oh, yeah. All right. All right.